360 TV proudly presents Messages of Inspirational Stories, broadcasting and live streaming to millions of devices around the world, including Roku, and live streaming to Facebook Live. Also on Amazon Fire TV and to Twitch. Also Android TV and Periscope. Broadcasting to Apple TV and YouTube Live. Proudly brought to you by our host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Michaela Vidal, host and administrator, and Jim Grant, producer and host. Proudly brought to you by the 6minutewebinar.com.
Welcome to Messages of Inspirational Stories. Well, today's Thursday, and I am so excited, Jim, and I know you are too, because we have been talking about how your attitude needs to match your whole everything, right?
Yes.
Your whole everything. And that includes our kids.
Mm-hmm. It really does, Donna. And ladies and gentlemen, we're so glad you tuned in and to us today, because your attitude is definitely going to impact your child like it impacts everybody else. I mean, there's just some people on planet Earth that when you see them coming, you just want to give them a wide berth and do a detour around them.
Right. You exhale when they leave.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like that old saying, some people bring happiness when they walk in the room and others bring happiness when they leave the room. But, Donna, we were talking earlier today, about, the problems that, parents have with kids.
Whew.
I mean, I don't care who you are. I mean, it's kind of like a comedian said, the reason why he thought God made teenagers the way they were is because he's going to say, okay, see how you feel whenever you create somebody in your own image and they deny you even exist.
Right. And it comes back in spades.
Yeah, it really does. And as the old saying goes, like I heard this said before by someone else, and it's so true for all of us, especially us guys. My dad started getting real smart time I turned about 25 to 26, maybe 27.
Right. Right.
Oh, goodness.
And
but we've had a lot of.
The older I am, the more I hear the same words come out of my mouth as my folks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But it was never more true than when I was raising my children.
Yeah. Well, children repeat what they hear.
Absolutely.
They really do. And we don't like to think of ourselves as being that programmable or much of a human parent, but we are.
We are. Mm-hmm. We absolutely
really are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it was yesterday I talked about how my oldest said a very inappropriate word at a very young age. And I was like, oops, where do you hear that from? Right?
Absolutely. It's kind of a shocker, ain't it? And it doesn't matter if your child is very energetic or if they're dealing with a very strong-willed little personality, because each child has their own combination. And there are certain childhood behavior problems that are common at one point or another.
Right.
And it's the way you respond to these problems. If you're wanting a positive result, you cannot respond in a negative way.
Correct.
Because two negatives never make a positive, do they, Donna?
Exactly. Exactly. And explaining things to your children in the right way for their age level, what they can comprehend, and explaining it to them. You can be, firm, but not mean. You can be, explaining, of course, the old one always is the stove, right? You don't touch the stove. You don't touch the stove. Why, mommy? And I remember turning it on and holding my child up on my hip and saying, watch the stove. And as the burner got redder and redder and redder, I said, what's that look like? He said, well, it's really red. I said, yeah, it is. And I put his hand about this far from the stove, and I said, what do you feel? And he pulled his hand back really quick, and he was just a little tyke, and he says, oh, that's so hot, mommy.
Absolutely. And one of the things we're going to address today, this is a problem that I think we all went through it to some degree. And parents, every parent that, faces this, and that is when a child does not tell the truth. They tell a lie.
Yep.
And basically, Donna, the three reasons, number one, they will tell a lie to get attention.
Right.
Oh my goodness, how hard is that to deal with?
Mm-hmm.
Because inside the kid is saying, I don't like myself, or I
Right.
don't fit in, I'm getting peer pressure.
Don't like the situation.
Yeah. And they'll tell lies like that just to be able to, get attention, and
Right.
just say, look at me. And
Right.
sometimes they fabricate something, just to really sound spectacular.
Right. And that just leads them to, in their mind, think they're feeling better about themselves,
Mm-hmm. They really
which, of
do.
course, is completely false.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, one of the things that I recommend to parents is that encourage your kids to have the courage to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth is stranger than fiction can ever be.
Right. And I remember telling my children, if you tell me the truth when
Mm-hmm.
you've done something wrong, there's going to be a repercussion for it. But if you tell me a lie and I find out about it, it's going to be 10 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
So an example would be if I caught my child lying, right? I'd say, and they told me the truth, I'd say, okay, now we talk about the lie, right? Why it was wrong. Why did you think you had to lie? And we get to the bottom of it. And I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you are not going to be able to play. When they were real little, I found, at least for my children, I'd take away their toy of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't play with any of their toys, and they especially couldn't play with their toy of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, now had you lied about lying, you wouldn't be able to play with your toys for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives them the understanding that to tell the truth, okay, I can't play with my toys, but I only got it for 1 day. Had I lied about lying, I would have gotten it taken away for 3 days.
Right, right. Because you got to give them something that's measurable
Right.
at their level, and also explain to them the reason why lying is bad.
Right.
It really is, because it's just it just sets the wrong tone. And because kids like to lie, or will sometimes lie just to try to get out of trouble. I
Mm-hmm.
fell into that ditch many times.
Right.
Growing up, I mean, not now, not now. It's kind of like that old what's that old song? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I think we all have, one time or another in our life.
Oh
And,
yeah.
as you grow up and grow older, and it's hard for little ones to understand this, but when you tell the truth, you never have to remember a story,
Mm-mm.
right? And so
Yeah.
if you get caught in that lie and they're lying, and
Mm-hmm.
you go back and they're lying and they didn't tell you the truth about it, and you go back and maybe an hour or two later and revisit it, it may be a completely different story.
Oh yeah. Because a friend of mine said there's a study going on, and it's I don't want to get into the details, but I'll just say that if a politician has a career of being a professional liar, when they get older, their brain is all confused because they don't know the truth from a lie. And the sad part about a lie, if you keep telling it over and over and over, you start believing it to be the truth.
Absolutely.
And that is why it's important to teach a child that truth is stranger than fiction can ever be. Truth is
Right.
reality. Lies are not reality at all. And
Right.
so, we talked about, the reason they lie. Of course, the big one that I fell into was, of course, to not get in trouble.
Right.
And another one was for, we talked about first was to get attention,
Hmm.
but lie to feel better about yourself. That's a very,
That's
that gets down deeper, doesn't it?
yeah. That's a whole different animal.
Uh-huh.
That is a whole different animal, and so something is out of kilter in their life.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't think that I lied to feel better about myself. I could have, but I don't recall. Like I say,
I
my
don't.
specialty was to get not to get into trouble.
Right.
Who did that? I don't know.
Right.
And that never did float well.
Right.
And when my dad would ask where something was at, and I don't know. Well, let's see. The resident ghost was busy last night. Then the resident
Right.
ghost, because he'd pick up something be moved or whatever. But Donna, is there a time to tell a lie in life?
Well, I think that I define that as a white lie.
Mm-hmm.
And, a white lie is, for me, was, Mom, if my kids would be out and out, Mom, did you get me, whatever it was, XYZ for Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a white lie in my life. I would say
Mm-hmm.
no, because I wasn't going to ruin their Christmas. And I would just look at
Right.
them and say, well, oh my gosh, how in the heck could I afford that, you guys?
Yeah.
That's way too much money.
Yeah.
I got bills to pay.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a white lie. Jim, what are some examples of that in that you know of personally?
Well, the biggest one that really tops the list, I had a friend that came up on an accident, and the driver was trapped inside. It was a fiery crash, and the flames prevented anybody getting close to the car. And the person was obviously trapped. They could not get out. And they asked if they had the person asked, does anybody have a gun? And let me shoot myself. And, just person's going to die. So I don't want to burn to death. I don't want to, I want to end this pain and sorrow right now.
Right.
And I'm being very careful so I don't get anything specific. But this is a true story, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the person, uh, died in the accident there with the fire and all. But the family members chased down was able to find my friend as being an eyewitness at the accident. And their question to my friend was, did our loved one suffer in that crash? Now, he has said, no, they were already either dead or unconscious or whatever. And so he had went home. This is where it gets interesting now. He had went home after the accident, told his wife in front of his family what happened. And then when the family called him on the phone, his son was there and knew the other side of the story. And he could tell what his dad was talking about. And his dad said, no, I'm sorry, but that person was already gone.
Mm-hmm.
They did not suffer. And so I hung up the phone, and his little boy, it wasn't too little, it was about 12, 14, 13, says, hey, are you talking about the same wreck where that individual begged for a gun to shoot himself? And he had to explain to his son, sometimes in life, you must tell, like Donna says, a white lie to protect people
Right.
from extra pain.
Absolutely.
And I think we've all got things in our life that it's best if we carry those things to the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the truth came out about some things that we know in our lives, all it's going to do is hurt somebody. Where's the
Right.
profit in that? I mean,
Right.
just suck it up and take it to the grave with you and let it go, you know?
Yeah. I have a couple of those in my life that'll go to my grave with me.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Yeah, I probably got a truckload following me to the graveyard.
Yeah. Sometimes, and that comes from, let's be honest about this, that comes from a place of love.
Yes, it does.
It comes from a place of love where you don't want to hurt somebody else's feeling and
Hmm.
or tarnish whatever the case may be, somebody's memory. You don't want to do that. And that comes from
Hmm.
a place of love. And
Yeah.
especially, at least for me,
Yeah.
and what I'm thinking about quickly going through my mind, which I'm not going to say, but that person's already gone.
Yes.
So even though they're already gone, I will protect that memory and that person.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because who hasn't goofed up in life? Who
Right,
hasn't made mistakes in life? I
right,
mean, we're all, I mean, the better question is, who has to keep one of your secrets?
right,
Ooh, that. Now, wait a minute, Jim. Now you're getting too close to home there, boy. But it's true.
right,
If you're honest with yourself, if you look around, I'm sure there's maybe one person, but somebody is going to keep what they know about you, that is the truth, and keep it, you know, to
right,
themselves because there's no profit in because like Donna says, that they got enough love for you to do that.
right. So, one of the things that I always liked to remind myself of, and
Hmm.
it's especially important with children, is
Hmm.
every word you speak is an affirmation, which is part of your attitude.
Hmm.
The subconscious is always listening. So now
Oh yeah.
let's flip that and translate it to how we say that out loud, and our children are listening. They pull it in, it's hitting two places. It's going into your subconscious and it's going into your child's subconscious,
Ooh,
right?
yeah. So it's getting doubly recorded there, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that, Donna, but you're exactly right. That's a good point. It really is.
It's, we have to be careful, like we're talking about, because our children are listening to every single word we say, how we handle situations. Do we act or do we react?
Hmm.
Right? Do we think about it? I can honestly say, Jim, that
Hmm.
in my past years, when my temper was so bad that I wouldn't even think about it, I would just boom.
Hmm.
I'd react at that second, right? Just whatever it
Hmm.
was, right off the hinge.
Hmm.
And gosh, guess what? It doesn't do any good to come across that way. It expends too much energy. Is it worth it
Yes.
tomorrow? Right? Is it worth it tomorrow? Is it going to
Hmm.
be an issue? Um, or what if I'm thinking logically about this, then I can find a solution to whatever it is, and therefore cooler heads prevail. Right? You get
Hmm.
your point across, or you get your resolution a lot quicker that way.
Hmm. You're exactly right. And I was thinking about something that just popped into my mind. I remember one time my father, he knew, I mean, mom and dad, they communicated very well. And,
Right?
we didn't know that as kids. We didn't know
Right.
that.
We're too
But
stupid to figure that out.
yeah, we're still thinking we're smart enough. We can, outfox them.
Right.
But my dad came up to me and he says, I want to ask you a question. But before I ask you this question, I want you to know that I will not spank you if you tell me the truth.
Hmm.
And I told him the truth. And he says, son, thank you. He says, I will not spank you as I promised, or as, according to what I said.
Right.
And he actually rewarded me, you might say, for telling him the truth.
Hmm.
And, Donna, I remember him saying, if you practice that, you and I are going to get along okay.
Right.
And that made more of an impression on me than 45 weapons,
Right.
really, to be
Right.
honest.
Right.
And that's a clear case. If you're using a positive approach, you can pull out a positive reaction from your child.
Right. And
A
the child
negative,
learns and grows from it.
yeah, negative approach, like they're gonna it's gonna create another negative energy. It just does. It's just the way the universe is wired.
Unfortunately, yes, that's true.
Hmm.
My father was a psychologist, so I was always scared because that man could I could see his invisible antennas come out, and I was like, oh no, he's getting in my head again.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I I did tell a few lies when I was younger. I wouldn't have been a proper kid or teenager if I hadn't of, but
Hmm.
I was careful how I did it as to put just enough truth in there to not make it a complete lie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh
I
my
hear you.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
So, one of the things that we were going to talk about today, Jim, and this is a tough one, is when children are defiant. When
Ooh.
they flat plant their feet and say, no, I'm not going to do it.
Hmm.
Or you tell them not to do something, and they go ahead and do it anyway. And
Oh yeah.
that, ooh, boy, howdy, that one's a tough one. And that
Yes.
becomes a time when you have to outthink them
Yeah.
and out authoriate
Yeah. You
them.
got to show them who's the boss, as the old
Right.
saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there, if you saw me smiling, there's a reason why. My son James was laying on the floor in front of the TV. We only saw this one time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I says, James, I said, you're a little too close to the TV. Get back. No. And of course, Lisa's there and they're watching. She's watching me and Evelyn's in there. And I said, son, you're a little bit too close to the TV. Get back. No. I'm going to ask him one more time, and then I'm going to give him some, I'm going to explain it to him physically, okay? But I never got to that third time because all of a sudden, there was this very shocking commercial on TV about some motorbike, and I've been searching for it because I'd love to see it again because it's a classic in our family. But all of a sudden, this motorcycle comes out of the mud, and it looked like it was coming right through the TV screen, and we all jumped back, and here's James doing the back pedal across the floor, and we're
Oh,
done
that's
laughing.
funny.
Yeah, we're done laughing about that. So that was why I was smiling, ladies and gentlemen, because yeah, if I ever find that YouTube video, or if you remember that YouTube video, that old commercial was back around, 78, 79, somewhere in there, maybe 80, I'm not sure. But if you do find anything, like that, just email us at inspiratione360tv.com if you have any questions, or if you'd like to be sure and comment on us here, if you're at Facebook, and if you're watching live on Roku, please get back with us and let us know some of the things that we said here on the show was a blessing to you, because we would love to hear from you. I mean, Donna she just loves to get emails from folks.
Well, we love your feedback.
Right.
We
That's
love
what
your
that's what I
interaction.
mean. I was teasing you.
We love
Yeah.
your feedback. We love your interaction.
Hmm.
And, we want to know if maybe there's something that we haven't thought about that y'all would like us to touch base and talk about.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. That's so true because, we try to cover, themes and topics per week. And if there's a specific topic, or if there's a specific need out there
Right.
in society, we're your go-to people on that, because we're all about providing good, positive messages and getting away from all the doom and gloom, aren't we, Donna?
Right? Absolutely. So speaking of doom and gloom, I guess we're going back to defiance.
That's what I like about her. She's so positive all the time.
Oh, one of the ways that, just like I handled if my child was lying to me, that when they said no, I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you I'm going to ask you 3 times. And if you don't do it, there's going to be, I would always tell them there is always a um, consequence for what is wrong. Mm-hmm. So whatever you're doing, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, either way, there's going to be a consequence for it.
That's right.
And, I am the mom and, I need you to pick up your clothes and put them in the dirty clothes. Mm-hmm. And if I got the no, I'd say, okay, here we go again, guys. So you have 3 times and then something will be taken away from you. And we didn't have, back when I was raising my kids, we didn't have tons of electronics, right? We couldn't. And when they did come out, couldn't hardly afford them. They were so expensive, right? So, it would be like, okay, well, weren't you supposed to play with, your friend Jimmy tomorrow? Yeah. Okay, well, if this isn't done, you're not going. Mm-hmm. That got some motivation going in a hurry.
Oh, yeah. Because kids are going to test your limits, aren't they, Donna? Oh.
Yeah. Yes, and test everything else. Your patience, the wrinkles.
Yeah. We had a kitty one time. He was a male Siamese cat, and sometimes he loved, aggravating Evelyn. And we lived in a mobile home, double wide, and we had these spring-loaded cabinet doors. And he would sit there because he knew it aggravated Evelyn. He'd sit there and pull on one of the doors, bam, bam, bam. Just pull it with his little paw, bam, let it go. And she'd holler at him, and he'd stop or maybe run away. Then 2 minutes later, he's back over there again. Bam. And I mean, if that's just like a youngin', I told Evelyn, I said, that's a youngin' in him. And I always got a kick out of it. I always laughed about it. But it's a point being is that youth will always test the limits.
That is
look in the Wild Kingdom, the young buck deer trying to take over trying to prove himself to the old buck, and the old buck, put him in his place in a hurry.
Right.
It's something about that youth thing. I don't really understand it that well, but I do know that youth, especially your children, are going to test your limits. You must be prepared for that as an adult. And it kind of reminds me, Donna, of the old Andy Griffith show where Barney gets in an argument with the kid on the bicycle who's been riding on the sidewalk. And the little kid goes at Barney, meh, and Barney goes, meh, back. And Andy says, Barney, let's try and keep this on an adult level.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as adults, that's what we have to do. But go ahead, Donna, please.
Well, I think when children test our limits, it's part of their, it's absolutely part of their growing process. Mm-hmm. It's their brain developing, it's their emotions developing. It's the whole gamut, And then, of course, when you mix in hormones, especially when they're teenagers, and well, we'll talk about teenagers tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we don't want to make the audience totally depressed today.
Oh, God love us teenagers. That was great.
Oh, yeah.
But, it is part of their growing process and they're learning their boundaries and their maturity and all of that. And it is absolutely up to us and how we deal with it and how our attitude is, which the children will grow to learn from. Mm-hmm. Right? So, we've all heard those absolute horror stories where somebody has has grown up in a house where they're just parents are vile to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just mean, they're abusive, they yell constantly, and
Mm-hmm.
the children will grow up that way. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they won't. Maybe they'll go the other way.
Yeah.
But my point is that they learned one way or the other. But it's a learned behavior. You either learn what you want to be, or you learn what you don't want to be.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the challenges that we all had as parents, and parents have today, especially today, is that you want your kids to be able to listen to you and obey you the first time you speak.
Right.
But that is not going to happen. It's kind of like the comedian said, his mother would get mad and yell at him and says, "Do you hear me?" "Yes, Mom, they hear you across the street and down the street too." But we always want our kids to listen to us the first time and obey us the first time, but that is not par for the course.
Right. Right.
And
And
that's just
even at a younger age, they when you ask them, "Did you hear me?" and it's
mhm.
stone silent, right?
Oh yeah,
Not a word. So you
oh yeah.
raise your voice and you say it again, because you, like me, I'd be in the kitchen making something for dinner, and I couldn't run off and leave what I was cooking.
Mhm.
So I'd raise my voice again and a little louder, and they'd be like, "We can hear you, Mom. Everyone can." And I'm like, "Well, wouldn't it have been easier just to answer me?"
Mhm. Yeah. Because one of the things you need to do with your child there is do not let them have an easy out. An
Right?
easy out is a distraction. They could be sitting there looking at their phone or something.
It's also a
And
disservice to them.
oh yeah, it
It's a
really is.
disservice to them, because if they have
Mhm.
an easy out as a child, they're going to look for the easy outs as an adult.
You got it. You got it. And if you take that away and explain to them, the reason I took that away is because I want you to listen to me because what I'm going to tell you is very important, not only here, but in life as you get older.
Right.
And my dad spoke in country English, and he he talked very plainly. I remember when I was getting ready to go into service and go away from home and all that. And one of his follow the advice things were, he says, "Son, when you go out in this world and you don't want to be treated like an idiot, do yourself a favor. Don't act like an idiot." And that was just his fatherly advice. That's just
Right.
that's the way he talked.
Hmm.
He always said, "Plainest talk's best understood," and it's so true. But being able to help explain to your child the reason why you're taking that distraction away, the reason
Right.
why listening to you now is going to pay dividends throughout their life,
Hmm.
and because nobody likes anybody that misbehaves.
Right.
They really
A-
don't.
Absolutely.
And there's a
Absolutely.
lot of examples that you can share with kids of people that misbehave and say the reason they're when they act like this, people do not want to be around them. People don't want to be friends with them. And if you misbehave, the same thing can happen to you. They give them something that they can kind of like measure by.
Right. I I got a funny little story. My
Okay.
husband's cousin, her son, he did something. I can't remember what it was, but he made a ruckus and he got kicked off the bus for about 3, 4 days. And so she had to take him to school, and give her credit. She's like, "Okay." She put on her fuzzy slippers. She had her jammies on, her big bathrobe, and then had those big, huge curlers in her hair. She pulled up to the school and he said, "Okay, bye, Mom." "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to walk you up to the door."
Mm.
She grabbed his hand and walked him up to the door for those 3 days,
Hmm.
all silly. And she, embarrasses the living bejeebers out of him. And guess what? He never misbehaved on the bus again.
Oh yeah. Imagine that. Imagine that. Yeah. And that's a clear example of communicating on a level that they will understand, because in that case, the pain exceeded the pleasure of
Oh,
what they
absolutely.
Oh goodness, I would love to have seen that, because and chances are at a time like that, all of his friends saw it, and of course,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is just too fun.
yeah. And the mom, I remember back when seeing ladies, I don't remember what the treatment was for, but they'd actually take toilet paper and wrap it up in their hair. Some, have you ever, did you ever
Oh,
call?
yeah, my mom did that all the time.
Oh,
They had the whole thing going that
oh,
when
yeah.
they'd go get their hair done, get a
Hmm.
perm, and she'd go in there and she'd fluff it out, and then she'd get the toilet paper out and wrap her
Yeah,
head and put not safety pins, bobby pins
right.
in her hair.
Hmm.
And somehow they thought that that would protect their curls.
Yeah, or do something miraculous. Because one of my friends, he needed his mother to come to school and drop off something, and she says, "Well, I ain't done getting. I don't care." He was on the phone to her, calling her. I don't care. I need this and I need it now. She says, "Okay." And so she came over and had all this toilet paper in her hair. I mean, she looked like she's ready to go trick or treating.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. That is just too funny.
Oh yeah,
That is too funny. Well,
yeah.
one of the things that we all know about, but I think when our children are young, we have a tendency to not let it register as maybe as much as we should. Now, with that being
Mhm.
said, I'd like to say that I think the generation raising young children is a little more aware of it than, say, we were, Jim, because there's more talk about it and there's more that you can immediately go to Google and look it up.
Oh
But
yeah.
that is food related problems.
Hmm.
Food related problems.
Hmm.
Some foods will give our children a little bit of hyperactivity,
Yes, yes, it
right?
will.
Just like, uh, my husband always says how much he loves to have the grandkids over and then just feed them full of sugar and stuff and send them home.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Get them pumped up, souped up, and
Oh,
send them home.
right, right. And when they come over for dinner, though, being the proper mom I am, I make sure there's not too many of those snackies around so that they're going to eat their dinner. I don't want them spoiling their appetite on snacks and not have a proper dinner.
Mhm.
Okay, I was just looking. I'm sorry. I was just looking to see which banner you put up.
Oh, which banner I put up? I put up your email address.
Right, right. Well, I don't have my glasses on, and I know how sneaky you are, Jim. But food
Hey, here we're
related.
talking about kids misbehaving, and she's, okay, all right.
Yeah, he's a
Well,
kid and he misbehaves all the time. Trust me on
yeah.
this one.
They say growing old is mandatory, growing up is optional. And I asked,
That's right. And you took the
what is,
option.
yeah, and I said, what does optional mean? They said it had something to do with intelligence. And I said, well, what's that? And they says, don't worry about it, Jim. Oh, okay.
But
But we have,
seriously,
yeah.
food is really food related problems
Mm,
can be really tricky. And of course, we all know, there's so many food allergies out there. But
mm,
there can be underlying, it's something that I think really bears, and I'm going to say this with prefacing it. Unfortunately, today there is more artificial ingredients in our food than there was when
oh,
we were growing up or when we were raising our children, Jim.
mm,
Now, those
absolutely.
artificial ingredients can raise absolute havoc in some people's metabolism and some people
Yes.
in their children, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's why it's important to bring up to realize
Hmm.
what we're buying, how much sugar is in it, and if you don't know, um, good golly, if you like
Hmm.
yogurt is really good for you, but I got to be honest with you, it is flat loaded with sugar,
Mm,
absolutely loaded. So if you look at it and you really want to know how much sugar's in it, find out the how much sugar's in it, and then go home and start putting in a glass the equivalent of sugar that's in there.
Yeah,
Then you'll
it'll
know,
shock you.
right?
Mhm,
And so obviously too much sugar is not a good thing, but the
mhm.
preservatives, one of the big
Oh,
things that people forget about is red food dye.
mm,
Food dyes are a big trigger in our young children.
and their emotions.
Uh-huh. It's a big trigger for them because it's just not a good thing. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of dyes, red food dye, yellow food, and if you're not sure about that, folks, I suggest go to Google and look up food colorings in children and the related problems they have.
Mm.
It's a little scary.
It really is, Donna. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about that. But what Donna's saying too is that, your kids are going to have, they're going to have behavioral problems. That's freight trains coming. So you want to make sure you don't add fuel to the fire.
Right. You're
That's,
not loading the caboose
oh,
or the
yeah,
engine, I should say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also important when you're talking to your kid to ask them a question like, instead of saying, hey, get over and pick that stuff up. And just say, just ask them like, would you do me a favor? Would you kindly pick that up, please? Put it back in
Right.
its place.
Or, could you help mom out for a minute?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you're asking for help.
Hmm.
And then say, and then I've had this happen. Mom, why do I have to help all the time? Well, you're right there. And I help you too.
Hmm.
Remember? And then cite an example and then say, guys, that's how this works. We're
Hmm.
here. We're a family. We help each
Oh,
other.
yeah,
We have to help each
absolutely.
other all the time. But in explaining it, changes a disrespectful behavior to a respectful behavior in how you word
Exactly,
it.
exactly. Because if you ask them questions and have them, the best thing to do is have them buy in on the idea. That's sometimes a challenge, but if you could get them to, yeah, well, I'd like to do that too, because there might be a special reward that you can offer them,
Right.
special with them, because every kid wants to have special time with their parent, either
Hmm.
mom or dad.
Hmm.
And it's very, very important for them and for their growth is for them to just have a just have a day or a couple hours with their mother or their dad. And if you're a parent and you bring kids in this world, you owe them that.
Right.
This is not for the school board or the and 40 other people to raise your kids. You owe that to that kid. You really do.
Absolutely.
And if you're busy and all that, suck it up. Make time for that kid
Hmm.
because that kid, it's like
It's
I told
time
a
you'll never
person.
get back.
Yeah, it's like I told someone the other day. I forget what we were talking about. I said, "Well, my kids love me because I'm their father, but they like me because I'm their dad."
Hmm.
And that's very, very true. And I know a lot of parents can say that. And the kind of rapport you have with your kids, that is the ideal thing. They love you because you're the parent, but they like you and want to be with you because of who you are and
Right.
what you mean to them.
And and it can also be said, Jim, at our children's age now, all
Hmm.
grown out of the house, their own life,
Hmm.
etc., that yes, we're still their mother, their father, their parent, but
Hmm.
because they are grown adults making their own way in the world, we can now have a friendship with them that we
Mm.
didn't have with them when they were younger. And that to me is no more true than in those teenage years. It is not the
Mm.
time to be best friends. It's that's the put the gas down because those are the trying years.
Absolutely. You are so correct there. And when it comes to our kids too, I mean, like Donna says, I had my kids when I was young and I grew up with them, I got grown grandkids, and
Right?
oh yeah, I'm a great grandfather too.
Many times over.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's just amazing how the rapport you have with your kids, And one of my kids, I forget which one, a couple of years ago, was talking about, "Hey, Dad, you're getting older." I said, "Well, you're the one pushing me up the ladder. I was happy at 45, but no, you got to pitchfork me up higher in the ladder so you can make room for you."
Right. And that's something, it's amazing to me, um, how quickly that time goes by. So if
Yes.
I could make one suggestion to any young parent out there,
Hmm.
and I know it's trying, guys. I've been there, I've done it. I raised my children on my own. I know how difficult it can be. But man, make time for those sweet moments, because you will blink your eyes.
Oh.
You will blink your eyes and they'll be gone.
Hmm.
And there are, most days of course, I'm happy about it. They've all got their own lives doing their own things. But there are some days that it just hits me with such nostalgia, Jim, and a little
Hmm.
bit of sadness, because it's gone. They're not little anymore.
Right, right, right. It's like you say, I remember when well, this is a little bit off topic, but the truth of it is I always dreaded when Lisa and James were going to leave home.
Hmm.
And then Lisa got married, and then James joined the army and he went away, and all of a sudden me and Evelyn are home alone, and I always dreaded that. And then I thought, after a couple of, but during the first week, I said, "Hey, this is not that bad of a deal." I mean, nothing gets lost in the house. I mean, you
Right.
put something there tonight, it's there in the morning.
Hmm. The
Like,
food
okay.
bill went down.
Oh, yeah. And you
Right.
don't have to ask, like, what happened to that? "Oh, I don't know."
Oh, the favorite in my house was, who put the empty box back in the pantry?
Donna, I got to laugh at that. And I got to share, I did that very same thing this past week
Uh-oh.
because I didn't realize. And I tell people, hey, when I goof up, I've been on drugs. So just forgive me, with my medication and all since my surgery. But I did that. Because Evelyn turned around. Of course, we're the only two here. And she says, "Did you put an empty container back in there?" And I said, "Well, I guess so. I mean, I didn't realize it was empty because I had my mind on other things,
Hmm.
and I get caught up in stuff like that. And sometimes I'd be walking around with one of my shoes comes undone or something like that. The lace, I don't even know about it. And I was, "What'd you tie your shoe before you trip and fall?" "Oh, okay." You know, but I'm just got so many other things on my mind
Hmm.
that a little thing like how many pieces or how much is still left in the box or my shoelace being untied, it's not that big of a deal to me
It just didn't
because I don't
register.
care. Because I
Right.
don't care. You know,
Right.
because I realize that if it's empty, she'll throw it away. you know, and if it's if my shoe's untied, oh, another one of hers back in the summertime, are you going to change that T-shirt? Because one day I went in to take a shower and got my T-shirt like I always do. But in the process of getting ready, I put the old T-shirt back on and threw the clean T-shirt into the clothes. I mean,
Oh, that's
I,
funny.
I do things like that. And she says, "Aren't you going to change that T-shirt?" Because I had a food stain or something on it. It wasn't brown or anything. There wasn't any fruit flies following me around or anything like that.
Yet.
But yeah, but it's just amazing how we can get so caught up in the process we lose focus of the content of life, and that
Hmm.
is, and we can do that on all fronts. Just like when
Absolutely.
I get preoccupied on something, and the same thing is true with our kids. Our kids can get preoccupied, and I had up there, and I was going to mention this. Let me put it back up there if I may, because Donna was talking about that, and it came up, and that is where's he at there? There he is, Dr. George Grant, the Academy of Wellness. Donna and I know him very well, and he is he's a human encyclopedia about eating healthy and all that. So you can go to his website, You say, Don and Jim sent me. He will be more than happy to give you a consultation. This guy's got 3 doctor's degree. He's a
Hmm.
professor. He's worked with the CDC here in the United States. He's worked with the Canadian Board of Health up in Canada. So that should tell you right there, the lights are on. He's home. He knows what he's talking about. And I've got a lot of respect for him. And
Absolutely.
Donna and I don't have any problem in recommending him because your health, your food choices, and your children's health, you're worth it.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Dr.
And,
Grant is amazing.
and he's no relation to me because he came from the smart side of the Grants, we're getting ready for a commercial, aren't we?
Well, you were
Oh,
talking about how you get sidetracked with
yes.
other things that you're doing and going on in your mind.
Mhm.
And I think it's important, you touch base a little bit on that our children do too. When
Oh,
we
yeah.
forget, and I know I have been really guilty of this when my children were young. How could you forget? How could you
Mhm.
forget so and so, whichever child I was talking to?
Yeah.
But I never back then, I never I never thought about the fact they had other things on their mind, that
Hmm.
where their little life was at that moment. And I think
Mm.
it's really important that we understand we aren't the only ones there. Our children are there too. For that moment, that time, in that emotional and mental space that they're in at that age, that they go through the same thing we do, just in a different way, and that we
Hmm.
need to be cognizant of it, because in how we say something can really hurt their feelings and
Oh,
make them
yeah.
feel not
Hmm.
not maybe per se loved, but
Hmm.
just not valued as much as they should be valued.
Absolutely. Don't ask the kid, what were you thinking?
Right.
And because I
Especially if you
had that.
already know the answer.
Oh, yeah. And, oh, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen you do,
Right.
because that really, that does more harm and more damage,
Right.
long term damage
Mhm.
and you don't even need to go there.
Right.
Always try, ask them questions. Like my dad used to ask me, he said, son, when did this seem like a good idea to you? You know,
Right.
and I
Right.
never had a good answer for that. But my point being is that, you want to be able to ask them questions and get them. And when you tell them to do something, one thing at a time.
Right.
We have a tendency to tell them, you okay, you do this and you get done with that and you go over and do that. That's because we think in a multitasking type of mindset, but kids don't.
Right. They're not there yet.
No, no. And a lot of us adults, we think about multitasking and we're not there either. Don't kid yourself. We can, many studies on that have proven that women are very good at that, but men aren't.
Nope.
We're single circuit.
That's a good way to put it. You're a single circuit.
We really are, and
Hmm.
I know a lot of guys don't want to admit that. A lot of guys with pride and ego think, well, I can multitask, I can do this, that, and the other. And I remember seeing that. You guys may have seen this on the YouTube video, or it was on a video where this guy's walking into a store building. It's all cement, and he's on his cell phone, and he's pecking around at it, texting somebody, and there is a snake laying there right before the door. Fortunately, it wasn't a poisonous snake, but he stepped on it. The snake's jumped up, and he jumps up, and phone goes one way, and his shoes go the other way, and the snake goes the third way. But that is a clear case of not paying attention to your environment.
Right.
So men cannot multitask. It's very, very limited on. If you're telling yourself I can multitask, I can do this, I can do that, and I can do the other, dream on. Dream on. You're a single, if you understand that and you accept that, then you understand that children's, it's best to talk to them in a single circuit way.
Hmm.
Be very clear, very precise on what you want and what you want them to do, and make sure they understand. and be sure and reward them when they do something good. Hey, that was a great job. Proud of you. You did that better than
Right.
I could, you know?
I was just going to say that, and the praise that you give them after they
Mm,
do something.
yes.
Oh my gosh, you guys, that is monumental. That is
It really is.
absolutely monumental because they need that. That's part of their growth,
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally. It's part of
Hmm.
all of it. And it's how they feel about, they learn to accept and do the same thing as they get older. And
Hmm.
that's what we want for our children.
Yeah. Recently, when I was in the hospital, I had open heart surgery November the 1st. And I tried to make it a point. I didn't do it every time. I tried to make it a point whenever a nurse came into my room and they got ready to take my blood pressure or something, just say thank you.
Right.
That is a good habit to get into because how many times would you like to have a thank you that you may not have gotten?
Right.
Chances are you got a complaint instead of a thank you. And, think about how your kid would feel if all they got from you was a complaint and no thank
Right.
you or any encouragement about a good job. It just dominoes all the way around life. It just, and no matter how old you get, or in my case, how ugly you get, it still hangs on. I mean, it really does. I still want to hear
Well,
about a good job, you know,
you know,
and
uh, I I do that, and my husband does that. We'll be
mhm.
in the kitchen, and we'll go to zig, but we both zag at the same time,
Oh yeah.
right? And we constantly are saying, "I'm sorry,
Yeah.
baby, I didn't mean to get in your way,"
Oh yeah.
just because it isn't. It is an act of respect.
Right, right,
It is
right.
an act of respect, and it's courtesy.
And my wife would make supper and stuff like that, and I would tease her. I says, "Is this made with hands of love?" And she said, "It doesn't matter. You're going to eat it anyway." But see,
Ah,
we just both laughed about that because it was one way we enjoyed our humor together.
right.
And
Absolutely.
I'd like to share
Absolutely.
some more things with you, but we got 50. We're out of time.
We're out of time, Jim, but we're going to come back tomorrow
Mhm.
and we're going to be wrapping the week up about
Yeah.
teenagers.
Yeah, we're going to be complaining about them teenagers tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. The Messages of Inspirational Stories is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. Donna and I are so honored that you spent this time with us. And most importantly, love yourself first, forgive yourself first, and enjoy the joy and jubilee and the love and abundance of life that is so richly yours. No one can take that from you. You own it, you deserve it, and most importantly, live it.
absolutely.
Donna, yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here today, Donna.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, and
And
it,
folks, we look forward to being with you tomorrow. Have a great
absolutely.
day and be safe.
Bye bye. I think Donna didn't end the broadcast.